Welcome to episode 235 of the Grip Strip Podcast, the Working for Hardware edition of the Grip Strip Podcast. My name is Philip Matthew. I'm your host, and I'm still in shock that Chase Briscoe won at Darlington. So forgive me if I get a little verklempt. It's 90 something races. I was used to watching Tony Stewart win a lot more, and then that stopped. And then Brad was pretty solid, but it wasn't the same way. It wasn't the same deal. So watching Briscoe go and clutch up there and beat Kyle Busch was pretty big. So we'll talk about all that, but of course, I wouldn't want to do it with anybody else. The iRacing Indy 500 champion, a computer genius, a gentleman and a scholar, and somebody that I can actually say I have a little bit of experience now in a proper simulator after going to Apex One in Westfield, which is about 15 minutes away from my house. Not as cool as your deal, and obviously not an Indy 500 champion. I'm nowhere close to that ever happening, but Josh Fine is, and what's going on?
Doing great, Phil, of course, but I mean, I guess not as good as you since your driver won and everything, which I was happy for you, excited for that and everything. I mean, I guess my driver is Kyle Larson these days, but I don't feel the same excitement as I do for Dale Jr., but I enjoy seeing him do well and everything, but he's already good. So Chase Briscoe, who hasn't won in 90 some races over that period of time since 2022, which doesn't feel that long ago, is finally a winner and makes the playoffs here. So that's great and everything. And I guess let me flip it back to you on that sim thing real quick. Were they running iRacing there? Because from the pictures, it looked pretty cool.
Yeah, they're running Assetto Corsa.
Okay. Not as good as iRacing, but yeah.
I guess they didn't want to pay the cost yet because of how many simulators they have in there. Because they have so many different games on there, though. A lot of rally games. They have drifting. They have these are all GT specific, which of course I think is most like focused on. And those are brutal, but to sit in. But yeah, that'll be my 2 cents before Josh lets us know everything going on in iRacing in the sim segment later on. But before we get to all that, of course, Briscoe getting the victory at Darlington. We talk about Tyler Reddick having his version of the flu game, puking in his helmet and whatever, probably shitting himself too, and still winning the regular season championship. Kyle Larson falling a point short after missing a race, which tells you how good he's been this year. When he missed a race and he was a point short from winning the regular season title. But personally, I don't think that's going to affect him too much here as we keep going through these playoffs. We'll talk about who's in and who's out. We'll get into Atlanta a little bit. We'll talk about Christopher Bell winning at Darlington in the Xfinity Series and their points and heading to Atlanta. At Milwaukee, they had a doubleheader for IndyCar, solid crowd. Pato Award on Saturday and Scott McLaughlin on Sunday, the winners there. And Hello Palo goes to Nashville for the finale with a 33-point lead on Winge Power. Didn't look like that was going to be the case at the start of the race on Sunday, but that's how it ended up. So we'll get into all those things and other key storylines, which included a lot of mechanical issues, a lot of wrecks going on there over the 2 days. And Connor Daly taking Juncos Hollander and getting him on a podium. First podium for him, I think you said in like 4 years or something like that. So great deal for him. And his trying to go and stay on the IndyCar grid or get a full-time ride. Somebody who doesn't have to worry about his full-time ride for a long time is Charles Leclerc, who followed up his Monaco Grand Prix victory earlier this year with an Italian Grand Prix victory in a Ferrari. So Lewis's future teammate got to get all the spoils of winning the Italian Grand Prix at Monza, the crazy Tifosi, the all the amazing stuff that goes on with Monza. The McLaren duo of Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris finished second and third, but there's way more that we can get into regarding that. Mercedes not really being a factor, and then of course Red Bull really being off the pace. We'll in the roundup F2 and F3 at Monza. F3 ended their season. We had some news, of course, in Formula One. We'll get into that as well in terms of drivers. The U.S. Nationals took place yesterday on Labor Day, and some results that we usually expect and some that were a little unexpected there. MotoGP, Moto2, another long winless streak was ended in MotoGP at Aragon. They'll be racing at Misano at Circuit Marco Simoncelli this weekend. Indy Next ran at Milwaukee. We'll get into that. WEC was at Coda and semi-privateer winner for a second time this year. Won overall. And then this coming weekend, WRC will be back with Rally Greece and World Superbikes at Manicourt. NASCAR Cup and Xfinity at Atlanta. We'll preview picks and the I just remembered this. The Tate Fogelman algorithm comes out of hibernation.
You're right about that.
I'm trying to remember if we did use it at Daytona, but I know we have to bring it back for this race. After Harrison Burton won at Daytona, after Chase Briscoe won on Sunday, the bald spot Dylan ran over two people and won a race. I mean, it's been a crazy last few weeks here since the Olympic break. Depending on where we're at, we'll also give a little preview of the NFL. I think that I'll put that there as well. NFL 2024 season preview for our teams and fantasy prospects before the roundup. And then Josh will let us know all things going on in iRacing in the sim segment before we call it a day. So yeah, let's get going here. The Southern 500, the Cookout Southern 500 was a race where your guy Kyle Larson was the dominant presence for the majority of the day. It's not the first time that Kyle Larson's led over 200 plus laps in the Southern 500, looked unbeatable, and then something has happened. It goes back to the days of when he drove at Ganassi, 2018, when Brad ended up winning that race because of a bad pit stop by the 42 team. I think at least one other instance. I know he had a couple instances in the 42. I feel like he's had another instance in the 5 car. But of course he won last year, so it's okay. Looked like he was the class of the field, and there really wasn't anybody around him except Chase Briscoe. The 2311 guys started out front. Darrell Walsh Jr. on pole. Great job by him in qualifying both rounds to give himself an opportunity. He led the first 35 laps or whatever in the race, and then during that first sequence of pit stops, he lost the lead and never sniffed it again the rest of the day or night. Tyler Reddick was sick, as I mentioned, crapping himself, throwing up, whatever, was able to somehow run up front for a good amount of the day, salvage stage points, and and be able to beat Kyle Larson by 1 point for the regular season title, which is pretty crazy. We'll get into the results here of the Cookout Southern 500. Chase Briscoe gets his second career Cup Series victory, and in a absolutely insane with the way that everything's going. Stuart Haas closing, selling charters. Their people or 300 something people are going to get laid off. All these different things going on. And Briscoe goes out there and wins that race. And he was basically one of the only people that really had a chance. He wasn't there at the start of the day, but as the day went on and they went into the night, him and Richard Boswell made great adjustments and they were on. It almost felt like 2020 all over again when they were in the Xfinity Series together and when they could hit on everything, when they all were on the same page. Chase was winning races. He won 9 races that year. And I didn't want to believe that it was possible, of course, even with the great qualifying run. But then I was like, hey, Bubba qualified up front. That's pretty good. Have a chance there. Chase is up there. You never know. Crazy crap has been happening. They give him a good piece. He can go out there. It's one of his best racetracks. So Chase Briscoe with the victory over Kyle Busch. Christopher Bell ends up third. Kyle Larson fourth after leading 263 of the race's 367 laps. Ross Chastain in Hail Mary attempt to try and make the playoffs finishes fifth. Christopher Buescher sixth. Denny Hamlin seventh. Joey Logano eighth. Wow, Corey LaJoie actually finished ninth. That's something. Though he was talking shit after the race as though he's like some important thing. Like, dude, you have like 10 top 10s your whole entire career. Like, eat a bag of dicks. Tyler Reddick rounded out the top 10. William Clyde Elliott the second. Ryan Preece, Gumby Cindric, Brad Keselowski, Bald Spot Dillon, Darrell Wallace Jr. finished 16th. And Todd Gilliland was last car on the lead lap of the 17. There were definitely less than that up to a point, but cautions started happening there late in the race, and that's really where the opportunity came for Briscoe, Josh, when on one of those restarts, and he was able to go 3 wide, make that pass on Chastain when he stayed out on old tires, and Larson. And he basically, at that point after that, nobody could get him. Even with the couple of cautions, the tires, different tire strategies. But, I mean, you had other stuff go on. I mean, Josh Berry was a dart without feathers on Sunday for whatever reason. Totally out of character for him. But he hit everything but the lottery. Byron getting wrecked, it doesn't matter. That's good for the world. SVG ran 26, so credit to him getting through the Southern 500. It ain't the Bathurst 1000, but I think it's one of the closest things that you could get to that. Martin Truex Jr., it's interesting, on the day that Chase Briscoe wins a second career Cup race, that the car that he's taking over for had an epic fail. Martin Truex Jr. looked like he had missed the playoffs or was in a position to possibly miss the playoffs after crashing on lap 2, taking Blaney out with him. And that screwed Blaney up a bit in terms of his playoff positioning. But in the end, he's in the playoffs. Martin Truex was able to stay in the playoffs. And, yeah, I mean, there's a lot. I mean, the race was pretty straightforward for a good amount of it. It was basically Kyle Larson. And they were watching Chris Buescher and Bubba Wallace, and to a lesser extent Ross Chastain, to see if any of them could make it. But when you had another winner come into play, that was outside of the 16 that basically ended their hopes. And for Darrell Walsh Jr., for Chris Buescher, the guys who are 11th and 12th in points, they're battling for 17th. And the guys that are, 20th, 22nd, and 34th in points can't finish any worse than 16th. So take that for what you will. If you want to like or hate the rules of this playoff, but I definitely don't hate the rules of this playoff, because if he hadn't won this race yet on Sunday, Josh, nobody would have talked about Chase Briscoe the rest of the season. So now, at least for 4 weeks or 3 weeks, he's going to get a little bit of media attention. And I mean, I don't think it's crazy to believe that he can advance at least one round and possibly two, with the way the layout of the first 2 rounds of the playoffs are. But what were your thoughts on Briscoe, Larson, whatever, Reddick, all the things that went on Sunday in the Southern 500?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I mean, I think for me, like going into this race, I mentioned Kyle Larson earlier. I'm also a fan of Bubba Wallace. And, I was, with him winning the pole on Saturday, I was like, okay, well, this is going to be interesting and everything, because, Darlington, it's hard to pass. And if you can get out to a good lead and hold it, it could be his day and everything. But then, once the green flag flew around, Bubba didn't really drive too far away from Reddick and Larson there in the first, fuel run, the first 35 laps. So, for Bubba, that was I think kind of key for me, considering the pace, it, seemed like, okay, well, Reddick and Larson aren't really running as hard right now. And if they are, they, definitely tires are wearing out and all that. But then, you have Bubba Wallace there running up front. But then after that first pit stop, seemed like they were focusing on the, pit road exit kind of being at a disadvantage under green versus, under caution. And, you're accelerating back up to race speed at the end of pit road and all that. So, definitely for, Bubba after that first pit stop, it kind of seemed to go away from him a little bit. It seemed like, maybe in the final, quarter of the race or final half of the race, before the spin with Carson Hocevar and Eric Jones, seemed like he was starting to kind of inch back towards the top 5, but then all those cautions kind of changed everything for him and everything. So, that was a lot interesting to watch, especially with the bubble battle. Of course, doesn't even matter now because Briscoe won, which, I think that was a pretty good move there, on the backstretch, just getting a run while the other 2 guys in front, Larson, going 3 wide, trying to overtake Ross Chastain as well into turn 3 at Darlington, which you don't normally see, but obviously new tires, you're able to hold it there off the restart. So, Briscoe, dirt guy as well, in addition to Larson, knows how to have car control under these conditions. So definitely, for Briscoe, it's definitely a huge win, especially a crown jewel of the race here, the Southern 500, which, it doesn't feel as, big as it used to, in a way, but, it's still one of the crown jewels, especially, and, seeing, it could be a deal with Eric Jones, Eric Jones, 2 out of his 3 wins are the Southern 500, and maybe for Briscoe, maybe that right now could be the case. Obviously 50% of his wins are the Southern 500, so it's a huge deal for him. The race there at the end of stage 2 seemed like it was going to be Larson, but they showed the graphic, every time Larson has led over 100 laps at Darlington, he fails to win. And they showed, 2021, he was dominant there. I think 2018, 2017 also was fairly dominant at that race, but didn't come through with the W there. So that trend still holds. So I guess Larson, for whatever reason, even though he did win the Southern 500 last year, it just seems like if he's too dominant here at this track, it comes back to get him. So that's a trend next year, I guess, and maybe throughout the rest of this playoffs, we'll see, depending on how it kind of works out. But yeah, that was interesting, and being at the end with Briscoe fighting off Kyle Busch, very reminiscent of 2020 with his Xfinity win there. So definitely for Kyle Busch, I was like, okay, KFB, try to pass him. I was, trying to. It was, two hands. Like one, I'm happy for you, but the other hand, I'm like, I kind of want to see KFB get this one here. Try to, get that win. Prove me wrong because I said he was gonna go winless this year. So, that was part of it there. But then, with the way that it kind of worked out there at the end, just wasn't able to get around him there. Just didn't have enough there at the end for Kyle Busch, even though he was on, I think, 3-lap fresher tires than Chase Briscoe there with how he was able to maneuver there on the final restart. But ultimately, it didn't matter for him. And, Chase Briscoe starting to look like he was fading, but he was just had enough in the tank to hold him off there. So, yeah, great win for Chase there, of course. And, if this ends up being the final win for SHR in the Cup Series, what a way to go out there. The flagship car, number 14, getting, victory in one of the crown jewels of the sport. So definitely a huge win there. And then I think the other thing we got to talk about is the so-called regular season playoff battle there with Larson and Reddick, and it's kind of bouncing back and forth. Larson was leading. It seemed like, okay, if he won the race, he'd probably win the regular season title. But then Tyler Reddick, very persistent through stomach issues. Even though I guess it seemed like on social media, it's like, oh, he's, having issues on both ends, but I think he said he felt like he was going to do that. So, certainly, yeah, don't want that feeling either. And I think, a little bit better than actually doing it for sure, but it's not very much better. And, I guess the medicine helped him enough to be able to, finish in the top 10 and grab that, 1 point for, over Larson to win the regular season title, which is huge for 2311. Only 2 years for the 45 car in the sport. And this is their third season now with that car, and then going back to the fall of 2020, starting that team and hiring Bubba Wallace with Michael Jordan. Going from that time to now, and basically in that time frame, and having added a regular season title there is pretty big for that team. So definitely got a lot going on. And maybe for Larson, maybe there's a bit of regret of the missing the Indy 500 or missing the Coca-Cola 600, but I think they had plenty of other races where they could have scored points, and something happened like Iowa where they had troubles and ended up finishing in the 30s, or other races where they crashed out, like Michigan a couple of weeks ago, which kind of opened the door for the regular season battle. So yeah, I mean, I generally don't like the playoffs, from the whole win on your end standpoint, but I mean, it did make for an exciting race, which, I think that's kind of what NASCAR is going for anyways. It was definitely exciting to watch, and at least, made the moment certainly a lot bigger for a driver like Chase Briscoe's, kind of gone through it so far in his career, but, I think with this win definitely shows exactly what he's made of, and maybe we might see this a lot more often next year when he's driving the 19 car for Joe Gibbs Racing.
I was saying that I said that to my mom early in the race, because I'm like, these Toyotas are really fast, and I'm like, Briscoe's going to be in those Toyotas next year. So it's not that often, it seems like, that he's gotten a good car here in the last couple of years, basically, at least the last year and a half. And you look at the 19 car and Gibbs in general, they're able to put out four cars that can compete on a weekly basis. And so you give somebody who's hungry like Chase Briscoe, you have a guy in James Small who wants to prove how good he is too. Not just with a Hall of Fame driver, with a guy who's trying to build up to that. It could be a crazy good combination. In terms of the guys. I mean, we talked about those that are the regular season battle. We talked about Chase Briscoe making it in, but I mean, you mentioned this in terms of the points, Josh, and uh, the guys who are 11th, 12th, and I think 14th in points will not be in uh, in this playoff. They'll it's 11th, 12th. Yeah, I was right. Okay, wow, good. 11th, 12th, and 14th will be out. The drivers 13th, 15th, 17th, 18th, 19th, and 34th. Yeah, and 30, yeah, will be in the playoffs. So, on the sense of most competitive drivers across 26 races, you're not getting the best playoff field. Um, my idea or what I feel is similar to what they used to have. I think the first change was after Smoke, Earnhardt Jr., or it was Earnhardt Jr. and Gordon in 05 and then Smoke in 06 as the defending series champion. They added the two best drivers or with the most wins as 11th and 12th, and they made it 12 drivers. And I think they kept it that way for a while. They changed a point system, I think, with the reset and stuff, and then they made the 43-1 point system instead of the Latford system, which in turn led to what happened in 2011 for Tony tying Carl Edwards. But I mean, I think that format would have prevented some of this in that, in the end, probably it means that, okay, Joey Logano and Alex Bowman make the playoffs and all those other guys, hey, it's cool, you won a race, but, you get to take that as your glory, but you're not going to make the playoffs. I think there's a exclusivity by having 12. I think there's uh, an aspect of actually having to run well all year, whatever the format is. And you look at Raw, they brought up the Ross Chastain point during the race where compared to a couple years ago when he did the Hail Melon, how many stage points he had, even compared to last year, stage points he hasn't had. He's had nowhere near the amount of stage points as some of these other drivers. And fundamentally, that cost him. And then you look at, Chris Buescher, who at times has been very fast, has had chances to win multiple races this year. I mean, how many you could probably look at a ruler and probably about, you could say 4 inches is fine. But that you could say based on Tyler Reddick going in a slide job gone wrong at Darlington earlier in the spring, and then the photo finish at Kansas, we probably aren't talking about Chris Buescher in this position. Chris Buescher makes the playoffs, no problem. Bubba had one of the best race cars at Michigan, got taken out with Larson. There's been other instances where he's had great cars this year. It at some point during this entire season, whether it's bad decision on pit, bad decision by Bubba, crap that happens in front of him, pit road mistakes, bad pit calls, whatever it's been, all of it has happened. Now, this has been Bubba's best year. He's 12th in points, so by far most competitive year. And that's with all the issues he's had. And in the end, unfortunately, not winning a race is going to prevent him from getting in. But he said it a couple of weeks ago, right? When he went and said, one of our drivers is battling for the regular season championship and the other driver is trying to back into the playoffs or whatever he said. He called it. And the fact is Darrell has a lot to hang his hat on There's still 10 races to go. He can win a race. He could win on Sunday. And yeah, it won't make up for the fact that you didn't make the playoffs. But in the grand scheme of things, you want to start the process. You want to start the 2025 season right now. There's been examples of that over time where people miss the playoffs, Joey Logano being one of them, miss the playoffs one year and then come back and then are championship contenders the next year. And they start it by going and preparing in the playoff. So, I mean, you look at those two guys, the Trackhouse team has not been good most of this year. Suarez gets lucky at Atlanta, and until a couple of weeks ago, he hadn't run good ever since. He runs well at Richmond because of the alternate tire. Him and Swiderski going and making a crazy call that worked, and then he ran well again the following week. Those are the first 2 weeks he ran well since he won. Ross Chastain, compared to a couple of years ago, there's been a steady drop. Last year he dropped down a bit from that peak in 22, and now he's taken an even further step down. And I find it interesting that that's your flagship car. That's the car that's sponsored by the biggest sponsor in NASCAR, theoretically, in Anheuser-Busch. They're hanging their hat on that car, and they missed the playoffs. I mean, Harvick missed the playoffs last year, but that's a whole different segment because, Stewart-Haas is a rudderless ship, essentially. That's part of the reason why he quit. But Trackhouse is an up-and-coming team. They're increasing their team to a 3-car team next year. I have a hard time understanding how they're taking these steps back and wanting to expand. Unlike what Stewart-Haas did back, about a decade ago when they were expanding when they really shouldn't have. I think Justin Marks has whatever ideas and he has a good plan. But when your lead driver doesn't make the playoffs with one of the biggest sponsors in the sport, that's a fundamental problem. And when your other driver, who you keep on giving contracts to because the guy is marketable, you can't understand half the shit he says, but the fact of the matter is he's marketable, I guess. And now they're going to Mexico City, so he's never going to get fired. The notion is he's won 2 cup races, and that's the same amount as Chase Briscoe, to be fair, so I can't really say anything about that. But, he has done basically nothing the majority of this season. So we want to get into validity of drivers being in and out. Briscoe has been generally a top 15, 20 driver all year. That doesn't sound like a playoff driver. I get it. They said the same thing 2 years ago when he basically was the worst driver that made the playoffs, and he finished in 8th in points or whatever he did. So, I mean, there's an argument to be made. As long as you get in, that's the whole point. That's whatever the system is, you just have to get in. He did it. And Suarez and Gumby Cindric and Harrison Burton. I mean, Bald Spot Dylan for like 2 seconds was going to be in the playoffs too. Like, he had no business being in it. You could say Harrison. We could get into that. But I think the greater question is, I mean, to me, Josh, like, what do those 3 teams do? And I mean, especially Chastain. That's the one that I have a hard time seeing what they are gonna do, because it's been downward trending. He was winning races. He was the fiery guy. Last year, that wreck with Larson and I think Rick Hendrick threatening to murder him or whatever the hell he said to him. And ever since then, Ross Chastain has not been the same guy. And that team ever since then has not been the same team. And now they don't even make the playoffs. At least with Bubba, there's an upward progression here based on what he's gone through in his career and what he's done. There's an upward progression, and there looks like more room to grow. Chris Buescher has been in this Cup Series for 8-9 years, but he started in small, crappy teams. Roush has been bad for a long time. They finally have started to turn the corner last year. This year, Brad has outrun him most of the season. But to be fair to Chris Buescher, he's been in position to win more races. He didn't close them. And that's something that in his past he's been able to do. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to do this year. So I don't really have as much a concern for both of those guys, especially with the viability of their teams that they're on. I do have a concern about Ross Chastain, though. But what are your thoughts about those three that the first three that ended up missing the playoffs because of the winners, these oddball winners here in recent weeks?
I mean, I think I'll start with Chris Buescher, of course. For me, I mean, Buescher, it seemed like really he kind of fell off after the battle with Reddick at the first Darlington race back in May. And after that race, it seemed like he really fell off competitively. I think he, still had some stretches of races where he ran well, of course, but over this whole season since then, he got really inconsistent because up to that point, he had only had a couple of DNFs or bad finishes, and then that kind of started a stretch where he ran terrible for the most part, and still had some top fives here and there. Sonoma, Loudon, Nashville, but then, had a lot of non-top tens until Michigan. And then, he's finished top 10 the last 3 weeks. But clearly, just the inconsistency throughout the year just wasn't enough for for Chris Buescher. So they've got to work on the consistency. They were in position for wins, but it's kind of been a while, to be honest, when you really think about it. I mean, I think really the last one you can say that they were in truly, contention to win is probably Sonoma. And, he ran well there, led 32 laps. And then also, of course, Darlington, Kansas, of course, 1,000th of a second that he missed it, which ultimately defines how much he missed the playoffs by. So, obviously he'd like to have those two races back and we'd be having a different conversation there. So, they definitely got a little bit to work on for sure. And I think all of them do really. And then, Bubba, obviously his statistically best career year, but it's not, going to mean as much because didn't make the playoffs. So there's definitely some improvement there to be made. And, I think one example is even in this race at Darlington, which maybe, I mean, still, Briscoe wins. This is, doesn't make it, anything, but, or makes this all moot. But I think for Bubba, after the Carson Hocevar caution with Eric Jones there, lap 316, that's where kind of this race changed. The back half of the top 10, 8th place on back, went and pitted, and they decided to stay out, and then they got overtaken very quickly after that, and he was tight and just wasn't working for him. So I think you got to look at that decision to stay on stay on track as kind of a decision that maybe they wanted back. So definitely that's kind of an issue for him and his team that they've got to work on is the decision making. And ultimately they ended up being caught up in someone else's mess. Last week Daytona, they got caught up in someone's mess but still finished in 6th. They've had issues like that throughout the year. With Michigan, they got caught up in the deal with Kyle Larson there. So, they ended up, they had top 3 speed at that race and then ended up being crashed and finished in the 20s. So, for Bubba, I mean, I think it's just the decision making by the team and everything. And, I kind of go back to, what I sometimes go through in iRacing for me. I kind of get streaky at some points, and there are points where I do really well, and then there are other points where I do really poorly. I'm like, what I do wrong? And thinking it's like, well, you just got to make better decisions. Like, maybe don't try to go for it like on this lap. Maybe just be a little bit patient. And not saying that he isn't patient or anything like that, but I'm just kind of relating myself to my own decision making and everything with how I run in iRacing, and kind of goes back to the old saying, you kind of make your own luck. And they've had points where they did. They also had points where other stuff happened. So for Bubba, I think it's just a matter of I think they've shown they've got speed, but they just haven't been able to capitalize it at all times. So they've just got to be better at finishing races and everything, and be better at leading races, because obviously Tyler Reddick is outperforming him right now, which isn't a bad thing because I think Tyler Reddick's a better driver. But I think there's definitely a little bit of a gap there, and Bubba's correct. It's unacceptable that Tyler is competing for the championship and he wasn't, and now isn't for sure. So that's definitely focus for that team. And then for Chastain, I think the organization Trackhouse is really, they've really fallen off since they came onto the scene in 2021 and 2022. So it seemed like the first year of the next gen, they really figured things out, but then after that they've definitely fallen off pretty hard. Obviously, with Daniel Suarez, he was competitive throughout 2022, and it was only a matter of time before he had won a race. But then after that first year making the playoffs, getting his first win, until now is kind of fallen off. And outside of that win at Atlanta, we wouldn't be talking about him. And then Chastain opened up 2022 with 2 wins, and then after the beginning of 2023 really fell off, especially like you said, after that deal with Kyle Larson at Darlington last year. And then won at Nashville, won the final race of the year, so there's some potential, but they just, for whatever reason, just haven't been able to show any of that speed. So I think as an organization, they just, for whatever reason, have fallen off pretty hard, which given that they kind of came in as a brand new team and then inherited the resources of Chip Ganassi Racing, compared to RFK, they've got Ford backing, compared to 2311, Joe Gibbs Alliance, and Toyota full backing. So there's a bit of disparity maybe with Trackhouse. So organizationally, they've got a lot to work on. They're adding Shane Van Gisbergen next year, so definitely it's going to be a issue with having more resources spread out, which maybe having a third car gives them better data. But I feel like when you add a third car when you're not really running good, I feel like it doesn't really bring the organization up. It doesn't really improve performance as much as maybe people think it would. So that's going to be something to think about next year. Is they add that third car, especially with SVG being a total. I mean, he's not a total rookie now. He's got experience, but now it's going to be his first time running full time on ovals. So that's going to be the challenge there for him. And of course, they've got all their other resources in other arenas like MotoGP and all those other stuff. So and they're also, I think they're trying to be headquartered in Nashville for some reason, which, and I know they want to kind of define that place as like a racing hotbed, but that also kind of takes away from where everybody else is at in Mooresville area in Charlotte. So obviously said a lot there, but I mean, you kind of look at them piece by piece, and like I said, you can kind of come to the conclusion that 2 of those guys, Bubba Wallace and Chris Buescher, definitely trending upwards, and then Trackhouse, they've got a lot of work to do.
Yeah, and that's something that we're going to have to look at over these next 10 weeks for all these teams, because there's still something to battle for. There is cash for every position, obviously. I think especially in the top 20 or 25 for the teams. So there's something to battle for 17th, and also can they go out there, get a win? Can they go out there and build that momentum while these other teams are battling for a championship? The points heading into this coming weekend at Atlanta, Larson has an 8-point lead on Christopher Bell, 12 points on Tyler Reddick, and 18-point lead on Will Byron. Ryan Blaney ends up falling back a position to fifth. He will start minus 22. Right now, the cutoff is only separated by a point. There's essentially from 8th through 16th are only separated by 4 points. So there's a ton of volatility there. That's going to be interesting on Sunday with the stages, who goes for stage points and all, and how that affects the final result because, the likelihood of wrecks. You got Larson, Bell, Reddick, Byron, Blaney, top 5. Hamlin, Elliott, Keselowski, Logano, and Gumby, the top 10. Suarez, Bowman, Briscoe, Burton, Truex, and Keebler-Gibbs round out the 16. In terms of the battle for 17th, Buescher has a 21-point lead on Darrell Wallace Jr. and a 27-point lead on Ross Chastain. All right, so we'll get into the Xfinity race. And there you go. Buckshot Jones goes back to Joe Gibbs Racing for Joe Gibbs. He has no stranger. A multi-year agreement to drive in the Xfinity Series. Well, I guess it's because the check clears. In terms of the race on Saturday, Sport Clips, Haircuts, VFW, Help a Hero 200. Hung out with my buddy Mike, who's VFW. He's a veteran and fought for our country and did a great job, and also is a great person too. So hung out with him. He was wasted, so it was funny after Briscoe won. But on Saturday was Christopher Bell, the winner of the race. He led 108 of the race's 150 laps because they went to overtime, I guess. Beats Cole Custer and Sheldon Creed, who won one of the stages. Bell won stage 1, Creed won stage 2. Finished third this time instead of second, but Sheldon Creed comes close yet again to his first victory and falls just a bit short. William Clyde Elliott the second. Sammy Smith rounds out the top 5. Jesse Love, Shane Van Gisbergen, Chandler Smith, Hank Hill, and Justin Allgaier rounding out the top 10. You had Chastain running, and he finished 12th. Carson Quapples 14th. Gagson was 15th. Looking through some of these other guys. Corey Heim finished 25th. He was one of the last cars on the lead lap. AJ Allmendinger scored good stage points, but ended up a lap down. Sam Mayer, no stage points, finished a lap down and led 11 laps, but he finished 28th, so unfortunate for him. Pizza Face blew up 12 laps into the race. Wow. Okay. So yeah, there was the incident there. So, I mean, Christopher Bell goes out there, gets the victory. Josh, I mean, in terms of what did we say? I'm looking back at our picks for. I ended up picking Chris Bell. Look at that. Chris Bell, you picked Allgaier, Leland Honeyman, and Alfredo. Honeyman finished 23rd. You had Alfredo, and he finished. I must have missed him on here. Oh yeah, he finished 26th. Rare instance where I actually make picks and they actually are good. But I'll take it. I was in the right vicinity Um, I went and picked a wild card to win, but I didn't pick the right one there in the Cup Series. But in terms of the Xfinity Series, you have two Cup guys in the top four. Not that surprising. Gibbs at Darlington and Xfinity Series is pretty dominant. But Cole Custer, after what has been a rough patch here in the last few weeks, gains a bunch of points back, puts himself back into the mix to try and get that regular season title. Sheldon Creed yet again left wondering when he's going to win his first Xfinity race. But I mean, you run, I think they said it on the radio, you run well enough, you run that well, you give yourself a chance to put yourself in that position to get the win. So we'll see what happens with that. But what are your thoughts on the Xfinity Series?
I think right now my thought is what's it going to take for Sheldon Creed to go win a race? Because he passed Chris Bell there late in the going and it seemed like he was going to win, but then late caution comes out, green white checkered finish, and loses on pit road, and then it's over. It's over from there, and then he almost got a second chance at that there. Chris Bell, Cole Custer, almost getting together on the backstretch on the first restart lap. So almost an opportunity there for Sheldon Creed to kind of get it back on that restart, but then didn't play out for him, and now sitting at home wondering like, what do I got to do to win a race? So that's kind of my thought right now with that race, because if he passed Christopher Bell late in the going there, at any race, and I think especially at Darlington, that's pretty good. Got a good handling race car there, and then just two differences in the pit crew. Being able to, one for Bell getting off there, off pit road in the lead, and then Sheldon Creed failing to do so. Definitely that's one of the worst feelings to have, losing the race on pit road. So unfortunate for him, really. So that's that's how it goes. And at some point, Sheldon Creed's gonna win a race, and it's gonna be a big celebration, just like it's a big celebration for Chase Briscoe to go out and win in the Southern 500. So we'll see what happens there. So I mean, I didn't catch too much of this race, but at least with SVG finishing 7th, that's a good finish there for him. So definitely for SVG is showing improvement on ovals. Tough track Darlington is, so I think for him that's definitely a mark of progress that next year they can look at when they go in the Cup Series to the 2 times at Darlington. They can look at that as a place where they think he can do well. So definitely good for him to get that finish there. So I guess not really that exciting of a race, but that was definitely something to watch there at the end, which in the midst of college football, the Florida Gators doing terrible on Saturday, I flipped it to the Xfinity race just in time to kind of see that ending there, and I saw the pass on the onboard camera for Chris Bell getting passed by his teammate Sheldon Creed, but then caution comes out, and that changes everything. So that's just how it goes, I guess, here for Sheldon Creed. So hopefully he's able to get something, of course, getting into a new ride next year. So we'll see what he's able to do here in these final 10 or so races for the Xfinity Series.
Yeah, 3 races to go in their regular season. They'll start their playoff at the end of the month here. Atlanta, Watkins Glen, Bristol still on the schedule for them in their regular season. Right now, the cutoff, Parker Kligerman's plus 44. Sammy Smith he gets a good run this past weekend. He is plus 10 over Ryan Sieg. After that, basically, anybody else would have to go and win. This is a wild card event this coming weekend at Atlanta. So possibility of the likes of Bruckshot Jones or whoever could go and win and get in. I wouldn't count out Sieg either. When it comes to the point standings, right now SVG is 26 points ahead of Sam Mayer, so that at least he's beating somebody in terms of the points there. Right now, the three drivers ahead of him are the three drivers that are in on, three of the four that are in on points, Sheldon Creed being fifth in points. Otherwise, the rest of them 9th, 10th, and 11th. The only driver that's outside of that 12, like I mentioned, is Mayer. But, he had a brutal start to the year, too, so that also played a part. Custer, 28 points back with 3 races to go. He's got 15. There's a 15 playoff point difference right now. 10 stage win difference. So it's Custer's probably going to want to go out. Whether it's Bristol, probably, I think would be the most likely scenario, but he's going to have to go out there these next 3 weeks and cut into that lead if he wants a chance at those 15 playoff points. Going into the playoffs in Kansas there. The Indy cars ran at the Milwaukee Mile for the first time in a decade or so. And it was an interesting race. The groove was very wide. They had the road course wings on the cars, so that definitely played a part in some of the action there. To be fair, I mean, the racing was pretty solid the whole weekend. Scott McLaughlin definitely was fast the whole entire weekend. He got the win in race 2. He qualified on pole for race 1. But Pato O'Ward ended up being the winner of that race. He started 6th and ended up leading 133 laps. 133 the race is 250 laps. Beats Winge Power. Connor Daly, as I mentioned, after starting 25th, finished 3rd. Root Beer Floathead 4th. Hello Palo 5th. Linus Lundqvist had a great qualifying run on Saturday. Started 4th, but ended up 6th. Rossi 3rd to 7th, so fortunate for both of them, falling back. McLaughlin, the worst off of that, started on pole, finished 8th. Lundgaard, the only redeeming a part of what was a god-awful weekend for Ray Hall, Letterman, Lanigan getting a top 10. And Dixon going and finishing 10th. Excuse me. There were 13 cars on the lead lap. Rasmussen, Kirkwood, and Rosenquist, the last 3 cars on the lead lap. 2 cars fell out, Ericsson and then Joseph Newgarden. That was lap 146. They crashed together there. So those were the only 2 cars that were out in race 1. Colton Herta, issues for him. But yeah, so that was race 1. And in race 2, I didn't get to catch race 1. I didn't get to catch Xfinity either, really. So I'm trying to remember what the heck I was doing that I wasn't around to go and watch either of those things. But in race 2, McLaughlin leads 85 laps and started second, gets the victory. Will Power led early and spun out on a restart, and that put him back to the point where he needed to get a wave around to get his lap back. And then on the last restart, he still wasn't able to make any ground, and that left him in 10th. But there's 2 other people I mentioned, of course, Alex Palou had technical problems with his car. They're having a battery. It ended up being a battery issue, and that caused chaos for him and the DHL team to the point where they lost about 30 laps before they even got going. And that looked like it was going to end up with Power if he had won the race the way things were going, that he was going to have the points lead going to Nashville, which I think would have been a big problem. But instead, he goes and makes up ground, finishes 19th, and that finish, along with Will Power's mistake, might end up saving Alex Palou with now a 33-point lead heading into Nashville. Joseph Newgarden got wrecked on one of the initial starts, so what started out as a great weekend and great opportunity for the Indy 500, two-time defending Indy 500 champion, ends up with Newgarden left wondering. But, I mean, those weekends kind of happen. Marcus Armstrong started up front but got in a wreck. You have mechanical issues they show for Ford drivers, Siegel Award, so both Arrow McLaren guys, Malukas, Pietro Fittipaldi. Then you have Rex for Green Hall after he got run over by Christian Rasmussen. And then Linus Lundqvist, Stingray Robb, wrecked by himself. Connor Daly had mechanical problems, which cost him an opportunity to possibly double up there on the podium, finishing 17th. So, I mean, Scott McLaughlin put himself in a position after this weekend to be mathematically alive, albeit by the time they start the race, he won't be anymore. Once upon a time, a few weeks ago, he had never won an oval. Now, Scott McLaughlin seems pretty darn good at these ovals, and I think it's dangerous more for next year, Josh, than, whatever happens at Nashville. But I think Alex Palou definitely dodged a bullet here. Him and Barry Wanzer and company on his path to possibly repeat as IndyCar champion and win 3 out of the last 4 titles. Will Power's path to try to win a 3rd title himself got a lot more difficult with the mistake that he made in the race on Sunday.
Yeah, for Scott McLaughlin, Saturday seemed like he had a fast car early on, but then wasn't able to capitalize on that. At the midpoint, seemed like the first couple of runs seemed like he just didn't have the handling there, and battled with Linus Lindqvist for a little bit, and then Linus is able to pass him for the lead on track. So McLaughlin, of course, led a ton, but it ends up being, on Saturday not being good because they didn't have the handle. But then, with the misfortune on Sunday for multiple drivers, including his teammate, both of his teammates in Will Power and Joseph Newgarden, just it seemed like for McLaughlin that opened that door. So he's been pretty fast on ovals so far. This year he's been improving in his ability on ovals. So I mean, I think even next week for Scott McLaughlin, or 2 weeks for the finale at Nashville Super Speedway, I definitely think he could be a factor. And I mean, it could be a good thing for him being up front, being in the lead, but then also Will Power is also trying to win this race, so to win the championship. So it's gonna be an interesting storyline, I think, with how it kind of turns out there in Nashville. So we'll have to see. But in this race Saturday, McLaughlin had handling issues as kind of the run went later into the tire run and fuel runs, so they weren't able to get the win, but they definitely had pace, and then they came back, figured it out on Sunday, and were able to win the race. So good for them. For Will Power, I mean, I got to think that this kind of feels like 2012 in a way. He's still in it mathematically, but so there's a chance, but you really would have liked to have that back and not have that spin on the restart there off turn 4 and damage his wings. So Willpower looked like he was gonna win that race, and then mistake, and then it was all about salvaging whatever he could. Ended up using up whatever tires he had left to try to get back onto the lead lap, and then ended up having to run the last little bit of the race there with worn out tires compared to everybody else who was on either new tires or on scuffs there on the last run. So Willpower briefly looked like he was, looking like it was going to be a very close battle, but now not kind of the result that he wanted. So it's still a chance, but it's definitely going to be an uphill battle in 2 weeks. And then, with Pelot finished well on the first race, and it's like, okay, well, probably not going to have to worry about this championship here in a few hours on Sunday, but then battery issues when I turned on the race and he was already down. So opened the door wide open for a little bit there for Willpower. So I guess we'll have to find out here if he's able to, get back to finishing in the top 10 here, which I think he can here at Nashville. So I think as long as he has a good finish, should be good. But it's definitely something to watch out for, especially given the continued talking point about his ability that he hasn't won on ovals yet. So that's definitely something to look out for there. And then definitely want to bring up Santino Ferrucci also, who finished well in both races. So he was making moves. It seems like, once again, when you put him in a good car, he's definitely going to run well up front. And we've seen a lot of improvement from him throughout the season. So, him alone just being able to do that and, get a podium on Sunday, get a 4th on Saturday, that's pretty good for that team, which, they've gotten support from Penske this year. So I guess that's to be expected. So, this race is definitely pretty exciting, both, Saturday and Sunday, race 1 and 2. So, for the battle for the lead, you saw kind of the battle throughout the race, kind of take quite a bit to kind of form up, but once they hit traffic, it was possible for second place to try to overtake the leader, and we saw that plenty throughout both days. So good racing throughout. Loved how wide the track was and how it definitely opened up opportunities for drivers to make moves, and we saw plenty of that both races. So hopefully they come back next year. I think they are, but definitely shows why IndyCar deserves to be in Milwaukee, which for IndyCar historically this was always the race after the Indy 500, but then moved stuff around and stuff, and now the dates have been changed, so now they got to get back on the schedule and try to get people to come. So that's always going to be a challenge now, especially with how the markets are for racing. So especially 1 week after having NASCAR, which apparently was marketed more for the Truck Series, marketed more than the IndyCar Series. So ask Pato Award about that. So definitely they got a lot of work to there. But racing wise, once again, they show why they deserve to have more people paying attention to them.
And part of the reason why they should be on more ovals, but because of the likes of ISC, they won't be able to get there, I guess. And then you have Mark Miles, who's a clueless ballicker, who basically said that Pato Award couldn't carry the torch for a Mexican IndyCar race when he's the most popular driver in the sport by like miles. No pun intended. Like he has his own merch trailer. Alex Rossi, in his own way, basically gave 5 reasons why that Pato Award could carry a race. That's just ridiculous. But it is Mark Miles. He's not very intelligent. It goes with IndyCar and their history with having morons who are paper pushers or ball lickers or whatever, being in control. Even when you have people that are good, they go and come up with ideas that are ill-conceived, like Randy Bernard, like it. But that was the biggest story that came out. The lack of promotion, which is an IndyCar stronghold. They figure out, I don't know how you have a trillionaire owns the damn series and then they can't promote the damn racing. The truck series had like 15 people there the week before, and they had more promotion for that than they did the IndyCar race. I don't understand how that is. I mean, the IndyCar series is an elite series. In theory, it's basically, in terms of importance in this country, right after NASCAR Cup. And you wouldn't know that the way that they're promoted. This series has become, it's more like the IRL in the sense that they basically only care about the 500 and nothing else. And it shows with the way they're run. And then when you have asinine statements like, oh, Paddle Award couldn't get us to Mexican, couldn't help us go and run a race in Mexico, and then the NASCAR Cup Series is going to run their first race internationally in like 50 years or whatever the fuck it is, or for the first time ever, like 60 years, some crap like that. I mean, where are you going? I mean, what are you trying to do? They should have been in Mexico a long time ago, because there's been Mexican drivers for God knows how long, South America, whatever. You have a strong Mexican South American presence in this sport, and it's been there from before I started, before I was alive, basically. But really, my whole lifetime, there's been those presence. And then, yeah, you have Adrian Fernandez and Mario Dominguez and Michel Jourdain and insert, like driver here, Jose Lagarza, whatever. All these Mexican racers. And Paddle Award's probably the most popular of all of them. Like, he could, and in theory, he really should be in Formula One, but he's, his inconsistencies, his best is so good, and I'm a fan. I've been a fan for a long time. His best is really, really good, but when it goes down, it really goes in a tank, and that's basically the same thing as Colton Herta, to be fair. And the two guys that are the most likely guys to go and run in Formula One, that's the knock on both of them, to be fair. But I mean, Paddle Award could go by himself, I think, and promote. I think he would have been better off going to the people who run the track and being like, "Hey, what do you want me to do?" And then called in IndyCar afterwards before NASCAR went and got a race in Mexico. But I think that was the biggest story of the weekend anyway, other than Alex Palou escaping, was Mark Miles going and saying that Paddle Award isn't popular enough. And I'm like, okay. I have a hard time believing that when you consider his reach on social media. His reach on social media, I think the only person in IndyCar that has a similar reach is Hinch, and he's a retired driver now. So, I mean, outside of that, who the hell has that kind of reach? I don't know.
He's only popular because of Dancing with the Stars too. So him and Helio. So Helio has the 4 Indies, but besides that, he's not even full time anymore. So
yeah, Helio's an owner now. So I mean, Hinch, yeah, the Dancing with the Stars, definitely, but I also give him credit based on his personality and Canadian. A lot of the connections there, his path. He had a story. There was a story. There's different things that he connected with people. So I get it with him. On top of the Dancing with the Stars bump that he got. His wife does Disney and Hallmark movies and stuff, and all that, but he has a magnetism that generally is unmatched in terms of driver analysts. But the point is, Pato O'Ward's the most popular driver in IndyCar since the days of, Andretti and Unser. And I don't think that that's hard to it basically is the truth. I mean, who the hell? I can't think of anybody who draws like that in this sport. Who basically he has his own merch trailer in a series where they have basically one general trailer that has everything, or has one like the tent setup for everybody, and then you have Pato O'Ward who has his own thing. I don't know. Whatever. It's IndyCar. It tells you why they're going nowhere. Yeah, so I mentioned the points. 33 points for Will Power. He's behind. McLaughlin, 50 points back of Palou. Will be eliminated at the start of the race. He's led a league leading 637 laps on the season. Has same amount of top fives with Power and same number of top fives and top tens. Will Power has not won a pole this year? Is that for real? That is crazy. The guy who's won more poles than anyone has not won a pole this year. Okay. 5, 8, 11 between Palou, McLaughlin, and Colton Herta is fourth. I wonder if he'd get enough super license points if he finishes. If he somehow or another is able to move up in this last race, if he moves up, if he'd be able to have enough super license points to be eligible to drive in Formula One, considering what's going on there. But Herta fourth, Scott Dixon fifth, O'Ward in sixth. Then there's a little bit of a gap. 35 points between O'Ward and Kyle Kirkwood. Newgarden in eighth, but he won the Indy 500. Alexander Rossi in ninth, and Root Beer Float had 11 points behind him. And with outside of basically finishing dead last, Root Beer Float had the 14 cars going to actually finish in the top 10 in points, which I don't remember the last time an AJ Foyt car finished in the top 10 in points in IndyCar. Been a long, long time. Probably, I don't even know if Bourdais was able to do it. So, I mean, and he was relatively competitive. So, we'll see what happens in National in a couple of weeks. Moving on to Formula One. It was Charles Leclerc going with a one-stop strategy over a good amount of the field who went with a two-stop strategy, and that so science they're doing something. Yeah, so that was the we'll go into the results here. Charles Leclerc wins the Italian Grand Prix for the second time in his career, his seventh career win. Won by 2.664 seconds over Oscar Piastri. Lando Norris 6.153 seconds back of Leclerc in third. Carlos Sainz was fourth. Sir Lewis Hamilton finished fifth. Fishlip sixth. Woody seventh. Checo Perez eighth. Alex Albon ninth, and Kevin Magnussen in 10th. And in the process of finishing 10th, he got enough penalty points to get a one-race ban. So congratulations to Kevin Magnussen for getting that PR for Haas, since Haas needs all the help they can get. So Kevin Magnussen figured out a way to get suspended. So credit to him for going Lord Mahavir and over this past year, and figuring out a way to get a ban. Like I can't remember. There's very few examples of it. Like I know Grosjean did it, and it's followed him his whole career. I'm trying to think of anybody else offhand, really. That's been Pierre Gasly was flirting with it, but faded that. So, but the race on Sunday, I mean, 2 stops versus 1 stop. Leclerc somehow or another was able to make that, make those tires last. Piastri was trying to catch him, but really couldn't make any headway late in the race. He passes Lando in the first chicane, or I mean the second chicane, and on the opening lap when Lando had actually made a decent start. And that ended up being a controversial move to certain people, whether McLaren fans or not, which could affect Lando Norris's whatever chance at a championship, as I put in air quotes. But yeah, Leclerc goes out there, and when you see these flashes of brilliance, you understand why Ferrari is so invested in him and why they kept him over Carlos Sainz. And it was a great weekend for Ferrari. They brought updates and upgrades for this race. They paid off a 1-4. They haven't had the greatest pace in recent weeks, but I guess when it counts, and for Charles Leclerc, for the places for it to count, it was his home Grand Prix and the other home Grand Prix, the 2 most important ones, I think, for Ferrari in Formula One. And Charles Leclerc got both of those this year, Josh.
Yeah, I think, for Charles Leclerc, it seemed like for me, it used up all his luck at trying to win Monaco and finally did, but until now has not had a really great season overall. And then comes out here. I mean, I think these are the 2 races, if you're a Ferrari driver, you want to win. Monza, Italian Grand Prix, and Monaco, and he's done both of them here in the same season. So incredible victory for Ferrari as a team in front of all their fans and their home race. So gotta give them a lot of credit for being able to figure out the one-stop strategy, and clearly they had enough pace to do it all in one stop and outrun everybody after that. So for Charles Leclerc, I mean, proves that he's able to still do it at other races besides Monaco this year, and shows that they believe in him a lot. And then I think it also, you mentioned why they're keeping him over Carlos Sainz. Well, it does show the potential next year for Lewis Hamilton driving for Ferrari in 2025. So that's another thing to keep in mind going into next year for what Ferrari might look like. But one-stop strategy, wasn't sure it would work, but they were able to build up enough of a gap over Piastri there at the end to where it wouldn't really matter. And Piastri, even though he was on better tires, just wasn't close enough and couldn't make enough ground in the amount of time that he had. So for McLaren, another victory that probably went through their hands for both of their drivers, just Piastri on pace. And then for Norris, it seems like they're prioritizing the Constructors' Championship over winning or trying to go for the Drivers' Championship. Even though they're outpointing Verstappen little by little, it seems like they would rather try to go for the Constructors' Championship and score points that way to get to Red Bull. Because for Norris, I mean, he's got to go out and win races, and it's another race where didn't capitalize on the points that were available to him to go and finish over Max. So for Max, of course, and for Red Bull, they still feel a lot of pressure here, but it's obviously in context because they still have a fairly big point lead. So if they continue to at least get in the top 10 and McLaren doesn't completely go out and get Max points, maybe they don't have enough. Maybe there's not enough for them to really worry about, but it's definitely a concern. And I think if they don't prioritize getting better, then maybe we'll see a title battle at the end of the season. But I think as we continue to go race by race, and McLaren makes mistakes or doesn't figure out how to get their driver who's best in position to win the championship the opportunity to try to win the championship, then Red Bull, Max Verstappen won't have much to worry about in terms of the drivers' championship. But the constructors' championship may be more in play for McLaren there, so maybe that's the path for them to try to get something, which still would be a pretty good achievement considering where they were just only a few years ago. So yeah, that's kind of how it goes, I guess, in F1 and politics, I guess. I mean, with McLaren, do they let Piastri by? And I think maybe if Lando was a little bit closer, you could make that justification to do that. But I think for Piastri is too far ahead, and if he started laying off there at the end to let Norris get the points that he needed, definitely looks a little suspect there, and definitely would be pretty obvious politics. I mean, either way it would be, but it's better to let off when he's like a couple car lengths behind you rather than a couple of seconds, because you have to slow down more deliberately, I think, in that case. So clearly McLaren, I think they're going for one championship instead of two, I think.
I mean, I think in the end they did what they had to do. Yes, Piastri made that move on Lando because he wasn't paying attention. I'm not going to blame him for racing. And but if you're trying to maximize a World Drivers' Championship, that wasn't a great look. However, you're trying to maximize the Constructors' Championship. And if you're trying to have Oscar Piastri pull over, you're going to turn him into like the new age David Coulthard. That makes no sense. You bought Oscar Piastri and had to pay off Alpine because the guy is a world championship contender. And you brought him in because Lando Norris needed somebody to push him, because he hasn't had anyone really push him. I mean, Carlos and him were very even in terms of their results and how they ran qualifying, that whole thing. Ricardo was washed, but the reality is he beat him. He won a race before Lando Norris did, at the Italian Grand Prix, no less. So Piastri is there because he's a world championship contender. He's probably, yes, Ricardo was there. And in terms of Australian drivers to be a world championship contender, outside of course, the great Alan Jones, has there been an Aussie that could really contend for a world championship? Yeah, Ricardo had his moments about a decade ago, but he wasn't going to beat the Mercedes. Piastri's probably the best chance Australia's had since Alan Jones to win a world championship. Lando Norris is the golden boy at McLaren, wannabe Lewis Hamilton, and he hasn't lived up to the hype. The guy is overrated, honestly, in my opinion, for the amount of talk and the way the media talks about him and the way they put him up. The amount of mistakes he's made on starts, during races, bad decisions. That whole situation that happened on Sunday wouldn't have mattered if Lando Norris made a couple of decent starts. He beats fish lips. We're not talking about some of this stuff that's going on. The guy's 70 points back. They've had the best race car. They've had the best car since probably sometime in April. And he has 2 wins. I mean, they had to tell him to pull over for Piastri, which also wasn't a great look. But that was McLaren fucking up, of course, which is part of the problem. Lando can't help himself because he doesn't do the right things in the car. And then McLaren can't help themselves because they figure out ways to fuck things up every single race. So, they're taking Piastri, making him the fall guy for the fact that McLaren doesn't know how to manage a race. And then Lando Norris can't race his own car properly. I mean, in all of this, though, they have the best car. They've been the better team than Red Bull. So they're in the mix to win this Constructors' Championship, which is where the money comes from at the end of the day. Ferrari, with this 1-4 result, puts themselves back in the Constructors. So now that's the most intriguing thing really to talk about, is the Constructors between those three teams. That is going to be what's interesting running out the rest of this season when you consider what is probably Fish Lips getting another championship. And that this year it'll be because he did all the work early in the year to put himself in that insurmountable lead that no matter what Lando Norris does, it isn't going to matter. They were a non-factor this whole weekend, whether by choice or by whatever. They just weren't a factor. Baku's a good track for Red Bull, so I'm curious to see what will happen there. If they continue to be on this downward trend. Supposedly, Fish Lips was quoted as saying they're not going to win a race the rest of the year. I find that I find that hard to believe. Largely because it's Fish Lips and it's Red Fool. They still have a good car. You look at Ferrari, they hadn't had a great car, and now all of a sudden they're back. They had a good car. Mercedes had a piece of shit for 2.5 years, and they finally fixed it. And Lewis wins 2 races, and Woody wins 1. I mean, and gave away another. So it's like the whole point is the way things are going in Formula One. I don't know what's going to happen. It makes it a lot more watchable than it has been the last 2.5 years. But I mean, the constructors is what we're looking at now, and it puts an emphasis on both drivers. Ferrari has 2 good drivers. McLaren has 2 good drivers. Red Fool has 1. That's so when you usually only have 1, you're not going to win a constructors championship. And that's Red Fool's strategy and has been their strategy for years. By hook or by crook, that's just what they seem to like to do. Checo is not carrying his weight. They're not going to put Liam Lawson in that car. They're not going to put Yuki Tsunoda in that car for whatever reason. Daniel Ricciardo has no business being in that car either. So they're going to lose a Constructors' Championship. Now, who wins it? Probably going to be McLaren if they don't screw themselves up. But Ferrari's lurking. And that's what's interesting with, Carlos walking out the door, with Leclerc getting ready to have Lewis there. It's an interesting dynamic there. Can they maximize this duo to put themselves in a position to get this Constructors' Championship? McLaren has the best driving tandem, honestly, minus all the other nonsense that's going on. This should be no doubt. And later in the next month or so, I'm sure we'll be talking about it, that they're in the lead or whatever. But way more drama than there needs to be because of McLaren just not knowing what the hell they're doing. In terms of the driver standings, as I mentioned, what is it? 60, 59 and 3, 59 and 2, right? Yeah. That's 2, 10, 4 is 6, 62 points. Okay, so 62-point lead for Fish Lips over Lando Norris. Lando Norris is 24 points ahead of Charles Leclerc. Piastri is actually only 20 points behind Leclerc and 44 points behind Norris. Piastri 13 points ahead of Carlos Sainz. Sainz 20 ahead of Lewis Hamilton, who is 21 ahead of Checo Perez, who is 15 points ahead of Woody. So that's the top 8. Then you have the Aston Martin team, you have Hulkenberg, you have the RBs. So then when you get into the results that goes into constructors, Red Bull is now only 2 and 6, 8 points out of McLaren, and they are 39 points out of Ferrari. So it is definitely McLaren, probably after Baku, will be the leaders, but Ferrari is there. Mercedes, Aston Martin are in their own world in 4th and 5th. RB has a 6-point lead on Haas. Alpine has a 7-point lead on Williams. And Williams has a 6-point lead on Slauber, who doesn't look like they're going to score a point this year. Okay, so let's move on to would be remiss. I mean, Andrea Kimi Antonelli made his debut in Formula One for Mercedes and crashed Woody's car, I think 2 laps into his debut, but he got the promotion, which basically has been talked about ever since Lewis announced that he was going to Ferrari. Andrea Kimi Antonelli will be on the grid next year at age 18, be one of the youngest drivers in Formula One history, being teammates with Woody. And then you have Franco Colapinto took over for Logan Sargent at Williams. They're in their battle to try and move up to 8th in the constructors. Didn't embarrass himself, went out there, finished 12th. He had a chance to possibly get out of Q1, made a mistake. It's just kind of a test run for him because he won't be in that car. Carlos Sainz will be in that car next year. And yeah, I mean, I think the Alpine, nobody knows what's going on with them. They may be selling. They're not going to have their own power unit. So maybe Andretti gets in that way. Sauber doesn't know who they're going to have in their second seat. So we'll see what happens as we get towards the end of this Formula One season. But Josh, I'll let you get started here. What are you feeling? What are your thoughts as we get towards the 2024 NFL season opener, just a couple of days away, and then your Jaguars in a tough division, trying to go after a couple of years ago winning the division and having a opportunity at a run. Last year, Houston took a huge step forward, possibly finally took a step towards relevancy by drafting CJ Stroud and getting D'Amico Ryans as a head coach. Where does Jacksonville stand in your mind heading into this season? And you're also give us your thoughts on your fantasy team or teams as we get started with this season.
For the Jaguars, I think their biggest asset this year is going to be their defensive line, with Josh Allen, Trayvon Walker, addition of Arik Armstead, plus numerous draft picks like Mason Smith, amongst other draft picks that they had this year. I think it's really going to bolster the defense, and the addition of Ryan Nielsen as the defensive coordinator is a positive change, of course, and I think that scheme is going to help players like Armstead, Walker, and Allen to go, or Josh Hines Allen, I should say. I'm still not used to hyphenated name there, but yeah, it's going to definitely open up the opportunities for all those players to make an impact on defense. And back in defense, Tyson Campbell recently changed his number, re-signed to a big deal. Andre Sisco probably should have a big deal, but I'm sure that'll come next off season as another up-and-coming free safety as well. Darnell Savage is back there as well, playing, I think, safety. So it's going to be interesting to see how the defense plays. Of course, you also have linebackers and Devin Lloyd, who maybe benched for Chad Muma. I'm not sure. Maybe it's a better fit. Not sure how that's going to work, but Devin Lloyd's back there as well. Foye Oluokun led the NFL in tackles. That's why I picked him up as my linebacker in our fantasy league, because I knew that he's probably going to get a high number in terms of tackles and a couple of interceptions probably. So defense, I think, is going to be the strength of this team. Trevor Lawrence, looking for Trevor Lawrence to get 30 touchdowns, set a career high. Of course, last year injuries happened to him, which I think offensive line still going to be a concern this season. How much of it is going to be a concern, I don't know yet, but based on what I saw from the preseason, it seems like they're still going to be, struggling some here and there. So definitely going to be the weakness of the team. So I think next off season, based on what I've been hearing, they've got to focus in on offensive line as a in the draft. Not because that they're bad, but also because they have players that they can cut, like Cam Robinson, who's getting older. Walker Little, not sure he's been good enough to justify re-signing him, even though he was a second-round pick in 2021. So there's that on the offensive line. So there's still some issues here and there. Mitch Morse, of course, that's probably a patch as a center. So you got that, and then right guard, right tackle, Anton Harrison, who, despite his weird food takes on Twitter and social media, has turned out to be a really good offensive lineman, probably the best offensive lineman for the Jaguars when you consider all of it. So expect a lot of good things from him this season. So on offense, of course, Trevor Lawrence, like I said, think he can get 30 touchdowns. Like to see Travis Etienne get back to form. Seemed like he fell off as they went on later in the season, which makes sense because offensive line started struggling against the tougher teams in the NFL that are playoff caliber. So still got his touchdown production, but his yards per carry average went down significantly from 2022 when he came onto the scene. And then on, I guess, the other running back, Tank Bigsby, hope he has a better or bigger role. It looks like based on preseason, he's going to have a bigger role here on offense, and definitely going to see more carries from him. And could be a low key, like, I mean, maybe not in our league, but maybe in other leagues, could be a pick or not a pick, but a possible waiver wire signing late in the season or mid-season. So we'll see about that. But for the rest of the offense, I think wide receiver, of course, the question, can the Jaguars get a number one wide receiver? They lost Calvin Ridley, and in the offseason, they added Gabe Davis. And they still questions of who that number one wide receiver could be. Well, they drafted Brian Thomas Jr. in the first round in the draft, and despite camp kind of started off a little bit slow, but kind of picked it up and had some pretty nice highlight reel catches, especially against the Chiefs game in the first game of the or the preseason. So for Brian Thomas, looking for him maybe not at the beginning of the year, but especially mid-season, late season. Definitely expect him to get a better feel, better chemistry with Trevor Lawrence, and really, show what he's made of in the NFL. Because I think, his root tree, his kind of craft at LSU, there's a lot more that he has in his abilities more than what he showed back in college, and kind of saw a little bit of that in preseason. So looking for him to have a pretty good year on offense. And then Christian Kirk, Evan Ingram, of course, they've got their rapport with Trevor Lawrence, and then new addition Gabe Davis from the Bills, big body guy. Definitely can see him as another red zone target. So they got a lot of skill positions on offense, a lot of potential there, but it's all going to kind of hinder on how well the offensive line plays. So we'll see how it does. I mean, I think Luke Fortner is not under center anymore, or he's not playing a center, so backup now. So at least he's not there. Mitch Morse, of course, like I said earlier, but outside of that, there's still a lot left to be desired from that unit as a whole. So we'll see how coaching does and everything, and how they perform here in the first couple of weeks. So I'm gonna say 10-7. I think that's the number to win the division, make the playoffs, get a home playoff game. I think they can win. They could win the first round, but beyond that, I don't know. I'm going to keep my expectations like that, and I think as long as they can become a playoff contender year to year, and get at least a playoff game, I think that's a good expectation, because you want that to be able to hang around and be competitive, especially in the contract that they have with re-signing Trevor, re-signing Tyson Campbell, Josh Allen, all of that, your core guys that you want around to have a competitive team for the long haul. So definitely think that all of that is attainable this year. It's going to be interesting how it plays out the first couple of weeks. You got Miami, which a little banged up going into the season here, but they can be beatable there. And then got a game against the Browns. Browns always tough on defense. Deshaun Watson, not sure how good he really is. Bills early in the season, still kind of good, I guess. Texans, that's going to be a very important matchup here. So possible. I mean, I think at worst they go 2-2 the first quarter of the season here. I think they can go 3-1. That's what I'm going to say. I won't say which games they win, but I think they can, get 3-1 to start the first 4 games of the year, which I think are critical. 2-2 at worst, and then middle season got some Colts, which are a up and coming team as well. Anthony Richardson, of course, and they've got a good defense as well, so that's going to be an interesting one. Bears, I don't know about them. Patriots, probably not a great game considering how they've been the past couple years. Packers, give or take. Eagles, November 3rd. That should be an interesting game there. Doug Peterson returning to Philly once again. Vikings, Lions, Texans, again, Titans. That's going to be an interesting one. Playing in Nashville after how that ended last year. Play Aaron Rodgers and the Jets, Raiders, Titans, and the Colts again. The last game of the season. So, I mean, I think all of these games, they can be competitive, and it's definitely going to be a tough schedule. But like I said, I think they return to the playoffs this year. I think CJ Stroud for the Texans, I think kind of has a not a letdown year, but I guess I'm jinxing myself in fantasy because I picked him in fantasy, but I think he's not as successful in terms of winning games for the Texans. Maybe has good production, but I think maybe they'll test him a little bit more this year now that they've got a full year of film, and the league now kind of understands some of his tendencies on offense, and things that he tends to do well, things that he tends to do bad. So we'll see how that goes for the Texans. So should be an exciting year. Was talking to friends about the Gators and the Jaguars, and I'm like, well, as long as the Jaguars have a good season, I'm good. So I already kind of knew the Gators were going to be bad. Saturday more than confirmed it, and have gone at length of how they've got to get rid of Billy Napier as soon as possible. So and probably the athletic director as well. So we'll see how it goes for Jaguars this year, but definitely after a long off season, definitely feel positive about them.
Yeah, and I mean, that division, you have Tennessee, and they have a young quarterback too, and Will Levis, but they're rebuilding. They have a new coach. Indianapolis, second year with Steichen, but can Anthony Richardson stay upright? If they can, then you have Jonathan Taylor, and you have Pittman, and you have pieces there. And they have a solid defense, but it really starts and ends in that division with Houston, Jacksonville. Doug Peterson wants to prove that he is still that Super Bowl winning head coach. And it shouldn't be just when they go back to Philly, when he goes back to Philly, but I think week to week when it's an opportunity. I mean, granted, the AFC is just an absolute murderer's row. Not just with Kermit the Frog and Taylor's boyfriend, but there's so many good teams that with the right, breaks and going and staying healthy, it's going to be very tough to make the playoffs and even and make a run. But we will see. In terms of the 49ers, after all kinds of drama and nonsense on social media and all the news and whatever, Brandon Ayuk is back. He got a contract. Trent Williams was announced to get a new restructured contract, so he puts himself back. They put him back where he belongs as the best offensive tackle in the NFL in terms of pay, or offensive lineman in the NFL in terms of pay, but he was the best offensive lineman anyway. It's also called he didn't want to go to training camp, so this was just a fun way for him to go and get fined constantly and then not go to training camp. And we'll see, and we won't know how much he ends up having to pay for missing all that time. But Ayuk is back, Trent Williams is back, and CMC, the MVP of the league, the real MVP of the league, is 100% heading into their practices and preparation for Monday Night Football against RFK's butt buddy, Aaron Rodgers, and the New York Bretts. Bob Saleh coming back to Levi's with a team that last year after Aaron went down, the wheels started to fall off. There are a lot of good players there, for sure, on that roster, but there's a lot of turmoil. It almost seems like a mutiny's going on. Saleh doesn't really have control of the locker room, and it has a lot of the same feels as 2008 when Brett Favre showed up with Eric Mangini as the coach, and they started 6-2, and then finished 2-6. And Brett Favre was showing his unit to Jen Sturger, amongst other people, while he was throwing footballs to every other player that wasn't a Jet, because he's a douche and an inbred dipshit. And in the case of Rodgers, he's just a wackadoo that probably spoons with Joe Rogan, so that's whatever. But I mean, in terms of the 49ers this year, all those players are back. You had Ricky Pearsall get shot for his watch, which is just crazy. So I don't know when we will see him. It's good that he's still here with us. But getting shot for a Rolex there, which is pretty nuts to hear about. But, you have basically the core of a team that went to the Super Bowl on offense, and they're back. Brock Purdy got married, had a full off season of prep. It's his team. It's the last year before he gets $50 million plus a year. They're going to have to open the Brinks truck for him. This is probably the last year where they're going to have that window to possibly go and get that job done. And that's really what it is. They got to go to New Orleans in February and win. Anything else is really not acceptable after all of this buildup, after all of these years. of building this team, having a lot of bad years early on in the Shanahan-Lynch regime. You had all these elite picks. You were able to go and get the likes of Trent Williams and Christian McCaffrey. I mean, what else what else you have to say? Seattle has a new coach. Not sure where they're going. The Rams have solid players, but you have Aaron Donald retired. Even if Andrew Whitworth wants to put out that Aaron Donald really isn't retired. And then Arizona. So that division can go, I think all those teams can be competitive. But there are things going on. Seattle, there are things going on with Arizona, especially with Marvin Harrison. Kyler Murray, we don't know how invested he is. Geno Smith, after winning Comeback Player of the Year, went down. So what will they do this year with a new offense and another year older for DK Metcalf? What can they do there? And in their defense, no more Bobby Wagner. So one of their last pieces of the Legion of Boom days is gone. Of the Super Bowl winning efforts of the past, they don't have that anymore. So that's interesting. So I mean, for the Niners, it's a lot about keeping everybody that matters upright, and and that doesn't. It's not just on the offensive side, like CMC, like Debo, BA, Trent, GK, of course, and Brock, but on defense with Nicholas John Bosa, Fred Warner, Greenlaw, of course, got hurt in the Super Bowl, so I don't know when we'll see him. Talanoa Hufanga coming back. What will he be like? You got Mooney Ward, one of the best DBs in the league. They got Leonard Floyd. He's gotten hurt. Some of the guys that they got reinforcements to help Bosa got hurt already. So we'll see where they're at on Monday night. And, I mean, like I said before, Jake Moody, great big leg. He is inconsistent, but he's young. I'd rather have that than not be able to kick field goals past 45 yards. Mitch has become one of the best punters in the league. And so those two situations are fine. Kick and punt returning is a definite question mark and a concern for me. But we'll see, especially with the new rules. I think Pearsall was probably going to be in play for that, but I think Jordan Mason's going to be doing some returning because they need to utilize him. So we'll see how he's able to go out and do things there. But honestly, I think for me, 12-5 for the Niners, division win. Will it be enough to be the number one seed? I'm not sure about that. I feel like it'll be enough to get at least one, if not two, home playoff games. I forget who said that Green Bay, it was on GMFB, and one of them said Green Bay is going to go to the Super Bowl, which, they were ahead of the Niners in their playoff game last January, and they weren't able to finish the job. But, there's a lot of potential there. Detroit, of course, had the Niners dead to rights, and then that went off the rails in the NFC Championship game. So those are just two examples. The NFC East, you never know with them. The Cowgirls and the whatever they got going on there. You have Giants team trying to rebuild after, I think, a decade of sucking. The Washington General Redskin Commanders now with Adam Peters, who was the Niners assistant GM. You have Dan Quinn, and you have Jaden Daniels, who's definite one of the favorites to win Offensive Rookie of the Year. So be interesting there. Philly started out strong, went in the tank. Can they go and maintain that kind of pace that they started with throughout a whole year? Can they keep Saquon Barkley upright to go and give themselves a chance as a number one seed? The South Division is wide open. Tampa Bay won it last year. Atlanta's back now that they have Cousins and a lot of other pieces there. Bijan. So they got a dynamic offense. Where will the defense show up for them? And New Orleans, you never know. Carolina doesn't really have a direction, but they've been terrible for a couple, 2-3 years. So you have to think that they're going to at least make a step up, but we'll see with that. Fantasy wise, 4 teams. One of them I didn't get to draft, so I'm not as keen on that team as I am with the ones I did draft. Doing pretty, I feel good maybe for the first time in the whole time of having a dynasty team. I co-own it with Vic, and we have a lot of good pieces to possibly go out there and at least make the playoffs for the first time. I really feel like that's a playoff team this year. My team in the Fall Brawl League, it's such a tough league. No matter what, you have to see how things play out. I feel good about the team, of course, but we're not going to have at least probably 70% of this team is not going to be a part of what I have right now in week 1 is not going to be there come week 14, with the last week before the regular season. So curiosity is there. Everybody in this league, including Josh, it's like I said, Murderer's Row, that this is Murderer's Row. If you win this league, yeah, you're going to have to go through a gauntlet. It's why one of the many reasons I seem to know. That's what I get for knowing lots of smart people that also are really into football like me. I made it harder on myself to go and win my own damn league. But it would make it all the more sweeter one way or the other if you were to come through. And then, I think the gimmick would have to happen if one of us do win the league, because then I'd have to actually mail you the belt, and then you'd have to wear it, and then I'd have to pull the gimmick. It just have to, if one of us get it, because most of these other guys are dads, so there's just no fucking way I'm ever going to send it to any of them. I'll change the placard. I'll give them their old placard, but they're never getting it. The only people that are going to get the belt are people who are bachelors, don't have kids, don't have animals that are liable to go and eat it. So we'll see what happens with that. Okay, so talked all about that, went through all the NFL, and so we will move to the GSP roundup. Yep, we'll go to Formula 3. Ran last week to finish their season. Luca Fornaroli goes and wins the F3 championship over on a last lap pass there. So Formula 1. Yeah, so we'll go back there. So in F3, Luca Fornaroli goes Leo Fornaroli, yeah. So he will go to Invicta Racing next year, as after winning the Formula 3 championship by 23 points over Gabriele Mini. Luke Browning was third, Arvin Lindblad fourth, Christian Mansell fifth, and Daniel Boganovic sixth. Go through some of these other guys. Sebastian Montoya was 17th. Max Easterson 21st. So I'm trying to see who in terms of, I don't remember if there was any Indian drivers. I don't think there was. So in the races on this past weekend, Tim Tramnitz won the sprint race, and over Ramos and Dunn. Boganovic and Megatunic was round out the top five. Fornaroli finished 8th and Mini finished 9th. So Fornaroli got a point there. Then in the feature race, Megatunic over Fornaroli, Christian Mansell finishes 3rd. Dunn, Stenshore, Tramnitz, Leon, Van Hoopen, Boganovic, and Dufek round out the top 10 to end the season there. And as I mentioned, Fornaroli will step up to Formula 2. Is now racing there Invicta and his referee. So I wonder which driver that'll end up, who that'll end up affecting with Invicta in terms of them. But for the results for Formula 2, Ollie Bierman wins the sprint race, and Gabriel Bortoletto goes and wins the feature. In the sprint, Bierman over Victor Martins and Dirksen, Pepe Marti, Zane Maloney. Jack Crawford finishes 6th. I guess it's Bortoletto's car. Probably it's either because it's Bortoletto and then and Kushmini. So we'll see what happens there. Andrea Kimi Antonelli finished 18th in the sprint. Then in the feature, Bortoletto over Maloney, Veshore. Antonelli was 4th. Dirksen 5th. Jack Crawford finished 9th. Enzo Fittipaldi was 10th. Kushmini had a weekend to forget in general there. So now going past getting through Monza, now there's 3 races to go. They'll race at Baku here a couple weeks' time, and then they'll have a break before they go to Qatar and Abu Dhabi. Right now, Isaac Hadjar has a 10.5 point lead on Bortoletto. Has not scored points if you're going back to Austria, he has, out of the 10 races run, counting Austria, he has had no points in 6 of them. But he does have a couple of feature race victories in there to kind of prop him up. Bortoletto in that same span has missed out on points only twice and got a half a point in the sprint race at Monza, and then followed up with a win. Zane Maloney's 30 points back in third. Paul Aaron, 41. Jack Crawford, 60, back in fifth, but ahead of three drivers that are either going to be in Formula One or are in F1. Antonelli Colapinto, Ollie Bierman is 14th in points, so take that for what it is. Yeah, Juan Manuel Correa. Yeah, so that's Formula 2. Get through for those. Move forward to the NHRA US Nationals. Tony Stewart in his debut as an NHRA driver in the Big Go. Did pretty well. He was able to lock himself into the countdown. He he qualified second for the U.S. Nationals. Brittany Force qualified number one. Defending Top Fuel champion Doug Coletta failed to qualify for the U.S. Nationals. So that tells you how tough this field was to make. Clay Milliken ended up the winner from the 13 spot. Beats two-time defending race winner Antron Brown in the first round, Josh Hart in the second, Brittany Force in the semis, who smoked the tires, and then beats Steve Torrance in the finals. So big result for him there. Tony got to the semifinals and smoked the tires against Torrance. But he has a decent piece heading into the playoffs in Maple Grove here a couple weeks' time. In funny car, it was Austin Brock. He had a great piece the whole entire weekend. Goes in from the number one spot, beats Chris King, Alexis DeJoria, Blake Alexander, and then Ron Capps, the two-time defending winner of this race. Capps went from the number 7 spot, beat J.R. Todd, Buddy Hull, who had won his first round of racing in the first round over Bob Tasca. Capps then beat Jack Beckman, filling in for John Force. In Pro Stock, it was Aaron Stanfield who doubled up in the Factory X Showdown as well. Stanfield beat Matt Hartford. Corey Reed broke in the second round. Then Stanfield ended up getting Greg Anderson after Anderson basically shook the tires on the hit. And then Aaron Stanfield beat Jed Coughlin Jr. in the semifinals. In the finals. Jed Coughlin Jr. Started from the third spot, beat Eric Latino in round 1. His nephew Troy Coughlin Jr. in round 2. Eric Enders in the semis on his way to the finals. Pro Stock Motorcycle was Herrera. Started number 1. Got gift in first round. Then had to race for it against Chase Van Zandt. Came through though. Herrera had to ride against his teammate Richard Gadsden and beat him there before racing Angie Smith in the final and beating her. Angie had beat her husband, multi-time champion Matt Smith, in the semifinals. And Angie Smith beat Steve Johnson, Mark Ingerson, and Matt before falling to Herrera. In terms of the standings, 12 drivers are in the Top Fuel playoff. Tony Stewart will start 7th, 77 points behind Doug Coletta, who still held on to the points lead. He has 15-point lead on Ashley, 28 on Langdon, Torrance 4th, Brown 5th. Brittany Force is 9th. In Funny Car, 12 drivers or 13, it looks like, are in the playoff. So I guess Dave Richards was countdown eligible, but he missed a race, so that's what that is. Austin Prockett's a 39-point lead to start over Bob Tasca, 46 on Hagen. Ron Capps is 5th, minus 71. John Force is 6th, minus 76. So that'll be for Beckman there. And then in Pro Stock, Dallas Glenn, 25-point lead on Aaron Stanfield, 33 on Anderson, 40 on Enders. Jake Coughlin Jr. minus 55. Yeah, there's 13, another 13 drivers eligible. Or it says 13 drivers are in, but there's 12 that are eligible. In Pro Stock. Then in Pro Stock Motorcycle, there's just the top 10. So, Herrera, 20-point lead over Matt Smith, 33 on his teammate Richard Gadsden. John Hall, 4th. Chase Van Zandt, 5th. Angie Smith, Gianna Evaristo, Hector Rana Jr., Steve Johnson, and then Chris Bostic. The 10 riders, I'll be riding for a championship in the Pro Stock Motorcycle category. In MotoGP, MotoGP is Marc Marquez gets the victory over Jorge Martin and Pedro Acosta, rounds out the podium. Brad Binder and Ea Bastianini round out the top 5. The big story was Pecco Bagnaia crashing running into it with Alex Marquez and crashing, costing him a lot of points there in the process. That's not what I wanted. I wanted the standings. So, Jorge Martin ends up taking a 23-point lead over Pecco Bagnaia with 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, 8 total rounds to go in the MotoGP World Championship. Marquez with the win passes Bastianini for 3rd in the points. Pedro Acosta leading his future teammate Brad Binder by 3, rounding out the top 5. Then you have Maverick Vinales, Alex Espargaro, Fabio Di Gianantonio, and Alex Marquez running out the top 10. The team's championship, Ducati, well out front of Pramac. And then in constructors, it's Ducati. No surprise there. I'll go to Moto 2. It was, Moto 2, Jake Dixon over Tony Arbolino and Onco. Somikat Chantra got announced as a rider in MotoGP. You have Manny Ramirez, Ayagura, Binder, Celestino, Vietti, rounding out the top 10. Joe Roberts fell out of the race, or finished a lap down, and fell out of the race. You had Foggia, Garcia, and Aldeguer. In Moto 2, the points for Moto 2, Sergio Garcia, 12 points out of Ayagura. Alonso Lopez, 3 points out of Joe Roberts. who has not scored in 3 of the last 5 rounds. Jake Dixon was on a heater recently. In the last 5 races, he hasn't finished worse than 4th. Oh, he's putting himself right in the mix to at least finish in the top 3. Aldeguer, Vietti, Gonzalez. Rounding out the point standings there. Move to Indy next. Louis Foster ends up locking up the championship. Not unsurprisingly, Foster goes and win over Jacob Abel and Salvador D'Alba. Bryce Aaron, Jamie Chadwick, your top 5. Yuvan Sundaramurthy finished 7th. There's, I don't know, some of the other people. Miles Rose 15th. Taylor Ferns did not start, along with Reese Gold. That was 4, because I had no radio. Car 39. Who the heck is car 39? Oh, Christian Brooks. Okay. Louis Foster, nearly 100-point lead on Jacob Abel, who has a 92-point lead on Kyle Collette. Callum Hedge, Chadwick, 4 points behind Salvador D'Alba. 21 points ahead or behind Callum Hedge for 3rd. Yuvan Sundaramurthy tied with Miles Rowe for 10th in points. There's a 7-point lead there, so we'll see what happens. Accordingly, at Nashville to finish their season. World Endurance Championship was at COTA this past weekend, and I mentioned in terms of Le Mans, we'll see Toyota racing. That's not what I wanted to do. World Endurance Championship. Lone Star Le Mans race at COTA. Results there before they head to Japan. The AF Corsa Ferrari of Robert Kubica, Robert Schwartzman, and Yiffy gets the win by 1.78 seconds over the Toyota number 7 over Mike Conway, Kamui Kobayashi, Nick DeVries. Antonio Fuoco, Miguel Molina, Nicholas Nielsen in the number 50 Ferrari finished 3rd. Then Earl Bamba and Alex Lynn in the Ganassi Cadillac was 4th. Alpine with Habsburg, Shatin, and Malesi finished 5th. Both of the Penske Porsches, BMW. In GTD, the harder racing team with Ian James, Riberas, and Mancinelli go and get the victory over Manthey and the Manthey cars. So that's the World Endurance Championship. After this, they have so they've shown all the races so far, 8 for the classification, the calendar. After this, there's a race in Fuji 2 weeks time, and then after that they'll have Bahrain to end the season, the start of November. Okay, so we got through all those. Rally Greece. Go through the Acropolis Rally. Trying to see The entry list for that. So in terms of the Rally 1, there's 9 cars, 3 from Ford, 3 from Toyota, and then Hyundai, has 3. So, so it's 3, 3, and 3. Okay. The points heading into the Acropolis Rally sees Thierry Neuville by 27 over Sebastian Ogier, who hasn't run every race. Tanak is 31 points behind in third. 30 is 30, so then Alfred Evans is fourth. Best Ford Adrian Fourneau in fifth. And then in constructors, team and driver, so championship standings, and then manufacturer Hyundai by 20 over Toyota for the constructors championship. Then in World Superbikes is going to the French Grand Prix. Commits to so Alvaro Bautista is going to stay at Ducati. So that'll be interesting how that. So they're starting to build up the grid. You have Bautista and Balega stay together, and Honda will keep Iker Lackawanna and Javi Vieja. Barney Ducati team will have Danilo Petrucci still. Garrett Gerloff leaves the one BMW team and will go and join Pedercini Kawasaki. Really? Okay. BMW, Raskadlioku on his way to a championship. Vandermark for the one BMW team. Then you have Alex Lowe's, Axel Bassani for Kawasaki. So that's Packet, all right, Nickel. Okay, Alex Lowe's had his future secured within the new Bimota by Kawasaki Racing Team that announced Bill signing hitchers. Now, Garrett Gerloff was looking for a new seat over Bonovo. Action BMW's withdrawing, but he secured himself a place with Kawasaki Puccetti Racing. Okay. So, so that's good. At least there'll be an American on the grid still. So that's positive. We're looking around Gerloff. With no being okay. So there's right now there is 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 seats available for the series. So interesting with the silly season right now. Toprak Raskadlioku trying to get another world championship, well on his way. Over Nicolo Balega he's got a 92 point lead over Balega. And then Alvaro Bautista, Alex Lowe's. So they got a good battle between those two. Andrea Locatelli, Danilo Petrucci, close battle. Then Ian Owen, Gardner, and Vandermark. Johnny Ray in 10th. Garrett Gerloff, 8 points behind Argater and 15 behind Johnny Ray in 10th. So that's it for the roundup. Josh, I'll let you start because I've been going for a while. We can start with the Xfinity Series and your picks and the algorithm pick as well for Atlanta as I take a moment here.
Yeah, for me, well, there's a lot we can go here. Obviously, can't go wrong with Austin Hill here. So, actually, I'm gonna pick Ryan Truex to win. That's what I'm gonna go with. Obviously, saw him win at Daytona a couple weeks ago. Won on a restrictor plate track there, and I think Ryan Truex can pull it off again here and show. I think 3 wins can definitely show you need a full time ride in the Xfinity Series. So, I'm gonna go with number 20 instead of 21 here this week. So that's a bit wild, but I feel like Atlanta is definitely a place where Ryan Truex can make it happen. So yeah, that's my pick for this week for the Xfinity Series. Wild card. I'm gonna go with Brandon Jones. He's re-signing, like we mentioned earlier, with JGR, going back to Joe Gibbs Racing. Save money at Menards, obviously backing him, and everything. So JRM, hasn't been that good for him. I don't know where he finished last time. I can look that up real quick. Let's see here. Go to the standings. Brandon Jones. Where did he finish at the second race of the year? Finished 14th. So, yeah, he was running up there, I guess. I mean, look at last year and years past. Didn't finish all that well. Crashed out at the second Atlanta race last year. So, I'll go with Brandon Jones as my wild card. So I'll write that down. Write that down here. Xfinity Atlanta. Josh. We pick Ryan Truex to win. If I can spell that right. And then Brandon Jones. I've got his autograph twice, by the way, because he autographed my Junior Motorsports hat, and I've got one of the fan cards that he signed there. So yeah, I'll pick him as my wild card. And now for the return of the Tate Fogelman algorithm, it says that Parker Retzlaff. Wow, so we pick him seemingly every week as a wild card. And I mean, damn, he would have been a real wild card at Daytona in the Cup Series a few weeks ago. So we'll go with that.
And it would be, I was thinking, it's so funny that literally I just had to go and take a break there, bathroom break, and I'm like, you know what, I really am thinking of Parker Retzlaff, and I'm like, it would be something if he goes and wins a couple weeks after Daytona, and he wins in an Xfinity car, even though Chevy doesn't want to support him, and RC wants to go and take his watch off or whatever, because he's an inbred dipshit. But yeah, that would be something if Parker Retzlaff goes out there and gets the victory. Personally, I think that would be really cool. He seems like a really good dude. He's one of your sim guys too, so that also I credit to him to make it. So that's something. All right. For me, I'm gonna go with. I'll go with Jesse Love. Why not? He won at Talladega earlier this year, so I'll go with that. So Phil goes with Jesse Love to win, and my wild card at Atlanta. I mean, I can just pick basically is any of these guys. I'll go. I will. It would be fun. Would it be if it was funny for them to actually go and get that victory? For the guy who once upon a time parked it at Atlanta, because he was told to stop, Josh Williams gets his first Xfinity win based on me picking him as a wild card. That would be something. Josh Williams' colleague has had an interesting year. They announced that they're going to have Daniel Dye and Christian Eckes will be driving for them next year. AJ Allmendinger's moving back up to Cup, so a lot of movement there. Josh Williams stays in the 11, so he gets another year there. So can he go and get a win to solidify himself? Maybe get into the playoffs? That would be something, to say the least. So now we go to the Cup Series, and I didn't go through. I mean, with Xfinity, there's what I think the entry list. It says 37 drivers. Nobody's going home. Haven't even heard of some of these people that are in the Xfinity Series, so that's always great. In the Cup Series, 38 for 40, so nobody's going home there. BJ McLeod running one of his limited races. The 44 with JJ Yaley. You have where else do we have? Some SVG will be in the 16. Cody Ware driving the 15. He had a top 5 finish at Daytona. So my pick at Atlanta for this first race of the playoff, I am going to go with Darrell Wells Jr. because what is he to play for now? He can go out, take risks. I'm sure he wants to win one before he officially becomes a dad, because Amanda's about to burst. It looks like, her and what is it, and Briscoe's wife too, but they're expecting twins. Why am I forgetting? Marissa, yeah, she needed help from McDowell to get over the wall, so that was something. So I'm gonna say Cup, Atlanta Cup, Phil, DWJ to win, and my wild card. I am going to say I mean, does it? I mean, I guess I can say it's a wild card because he actually is in the top 16, so that actually doesn't count anymore.
You're going to pick Harrison, weren't you?
I wanted to pick Harrison.
Yeah.
But I will deviate, and I will go with Richard.
Damn it! I was going to do him.
Yeah.
Oh well.
Richard wild card, because he's either going to win or run really well, or he's going to destroy a portion of the field. That's part of what makes Richard so great. And they won't have a sponsor next year, since it looks like Kroger is moving to RFK, but they haven't announced it officially yet. So that'll be interesting to see what JTG Doherty does for sponsorship. Josh, you get the last word here. 3 different choices you get to make, including the algorithm. So what say you on Atlanta?
I'm going to say that Ryan Blaney goes out and wins Atlanta, because when I look at this list of playoff drivers and contenders here, and based on past Atlanta results, I'm like, okay, out of all these guys, who's actually like good at this track? And Ryan Blaney's good at this track. He's good at super speedway racing, drafting tracks, etc. So I think he can come out here with the victory at Atlanta to open the first round of the playoffs. So, and qualify him into the second round of the playoffs, of course, round of 12. So that's who I'll pick as my pick. My wild card, since you stole it from me, I can't pick Ricky Stenhouse, but damn. I'm gonna go with my wild card. I guess I'm gonna go with Ross Chastain. You go with Darrell Wallace. I mean, that's not really a wild card anymore. I mean, Chastain, maybe not a wild card, but definitely hasn't performed all that well this year, like we mentioned earlier. So, and he has a fairly decent Atlanta record, I think, if you look at his record at Atlanta overall. Let's see here. He's finished, he finished 7th in the spring, and finished, 2023 finished 35th, 2023 in the spring finished 13th, second in both the first 2 races at Atlanta, so on the repave back in 2022. So a fairly decent record, I'd say. So I think he definitely pulled out at Atlanta, and he's a guy we know who's willing to go for it no matter what, at all costs, seemingly. So that's a wild card for me. And of course, the Tate Fogelman algorithm, now it's going to throw us a number here. It says Denny Hamlin is a pick, which, okay, you think, well, hold on a second, he's a playoff guy. Why to pick a playoff guy? But if you look at his results at Atlanta, and drafting super speedway tracks in general, he hasn't really performed all that well in Gen 6 or next gen era. So it makes little sense once you kind of look at, peer into the results, because, he finished 23rd, a lap down at Atlanta back in the spring. And, he got wrecked by Ross Chastain in the summer a couple years ago at Atlanta, which part of that rivalry. 29th, the first Atlanta race. Finished 6th in the summer last year, but that was also a rain-shortened victory. I think William Byron won. And, 23rd, or I'm sorry, that was 6th in the spring of last year, and then 14th in the summer last year. And then, of course, Daytona record since next gen came about abysmal. He's a little bit better at Talladega. So clearly he's, for whatever reason, this style of racing doesn't suit Denny Hamlin as well. He's basically admitted it on his show. So he's pretty aware of that. So I feel like there's some statistics to back up why the algorithm picked Denny Hamlin this week. But hey, that's what it gave us. So that's what we'll go with.
And 2 playoff guys there, so interest. And then one of the drivers that was right on the edge. So definitely a solid group to go with into Atlanta, which is the first of a few dice roll races that they have in the first 6 races. So we'll see what happens with that. Something that might be a dice roll is probably doing super speedway racing on iRacing. So Josh, you have plenty of experience with that, and you can let us know what's going on in the sim segment.
Of course, and to kind of illustrate the dice roll, and remember this one time on iRacing, I think at Daytona, maybe, or some other track, but it was super speedway. Some guy was like, keyed the mic, and he was like, it gets easier once you accept that you're probably going to crash and everything when it comes to iRacing, super speedway racing. So once you accept that fact, I guess, it gets easier. Do try to avoid them if possible, but it's not always possible. So Yeah, that's sometimes how it goes. But yeah, this week on iRacing, week 13, the update to season 4. Season 4 iRacing dropping here next week. So this is the in between while they upgrade everything, and where you get to test out all the new content that's come out. So I think of note this week for season 4, they're dropping a new street stock class, the mini stocks. So if you've ever gone to a local short track, on a Friday night or a Saturday night, and they've got all kinds of action going on, you definitely see one of the lower rung classes, the mini stock class, which I trying to see what. Well, it just says mini stock. It doesn't say like what type of car that it's derived from, but yeah, that's definitely one of those beater cars that you find in the junkyard, and you weld it together to a tube frame and then put that out on track. So definitely seen my fair share of those. So, and maybe you have too, I don't know, but that's definitely on queue for new content. So maybe you have to check that out here this week on iRacing. On the oval side, I guess there's a new update to the Dallara IR18. They've updated push to pass for the IndyCars. So I'm pretty sure it's had that before, but I guess they've upgraded it to be up to par with the real life standards of how much burst you get or boost you get whenever you press the button. So got that. Let's see. GT3s, the new McLaren, of course, which we've talked about. They've updated Spa. They've updated Zolder, the Dutch Grand Prix track. So there's that. There's also weather adjustment coming to iRacing, of course, with the wet weather model that they have. Also, I guess in addition to the mini stock, they have a dirt mini stock, so that's pretty interesting there too. Season 4, of course, week 13 here on iRacing. Of course, there'll always be things to do, of course, throughout on iRacing. Week 13, as far as content goes, official racing here, oval racing. Got 13-week Street Stock Challenge, the 13-week Truck Series Challenge at Chicagoland, Street Stocks at South Boston there. So got that going on. Trying to open that up. Let me see if there's anything else. Guess the iRacing Series still ranked racing at Atlanta, and the Cup Series still got that there. And Atlanta for the Xfinity Series. So that's still iRacing Class B, but those are all the open series, not fixed as they have on iRacing. So got that there for oval racing. Sports car GT3 at Zolder today, I guess. Porsche GT3 911 at Spa with the new layout there, or upgrades. Arca Menards racing at Circuit de Navarra. So that's the Tube Twister Challenge there. So that's an interesting one there. And then the Prototype Challenge at Sebring with, I think, all the current prototypes and the Acura and all that stuff. Cadillac, BMW, Porsche, GTP class cars, along with the Dallara P17 and the Liger P320s, so Ligier P320. So that's, I think that's open, that's unranked, so that's free to play, so that's good. So sports car, and then Formula car, Formula Fords at Circuit de Lebanon, and then Battle of the Little Wings, Skip Farber, Formula 2000, FIA F4 USF 2000, and then I guess the Dallara IR18 at, well, I don't think it's really at Nashville, but it's listed there. And then the Mercedes W13 at Motorland Aragon. So those are all kind of brief schedule this week, but those are all the series racing basically between oval, formula, and sports car. So on iRacing, which, yeah, week 13 is always the fun week. Nothing counts, anything kind of goes, but still want to keep the ethics up to standard and everything. So definitely be might have to try out the mini stocks, which that might be interesting to go out there and play, kind of get in touch with the local short track feel there. So, yeah, that's it for me on iRacing this week. Of course, find the streams at Twitch TV/usailor2 and go in there and watch all the streams there, of course. And then social media, Twitter, X at JP Huffine. NFL season's coming up, so definitely be talking about them Jags, the Jaguars, as I'm going to call them, because it's 30th anniversary and everything. So definitely looking forward to that. And all the other takes, of course, from racing, definitely be on there at JP Huffine on Twitter /X. And then, of course, our YouTube page at Gripster Podcast on YouTube. Everything's up there. Please like, subscribe our page. Added some new graphics, so hopefully try to keep that up and have time to do that to try to make us definitely look more presentable. Not that we already aren't, but hey, it's always good to look on par with other people. So doing all that on there. So yeah, of course, glad to be back on for another week, and I guess playoff time here and NFL time, I guess, here on this show.
Absolutely. And it was good to get into the mode of at least the new setup, at least for a while here, after technical difficulties and long weekend, getting back into it now, right in the swing of the playoff run here, and the back end of the racing season and the start of football season. So it's always great to have your insights, Josh, and support as always as my friend. So I'm always grateful for that, and all the back end work that you're able to do on the YouTube page, and also with all the stuff here on the show when we do it live. For me, you can find me PG Matthew 28, Philip G Matthew 28 on Instagram. If you're on either of those, you know that it's going to be spammed with lots of Chase Briscoe content, probably for at least the next few days, just because. You can find us, the GSP, at GripsterPod, also on Twitter, but then you can find it at philipgmatthew.com. We're on Podbean as our host site. Basically any podcast platform that is known, we're on there. So definitely get us there. The executive producer will make sure to get those things out there, so we're caught up. And then we'll be back next week for episode 236 of the GSP to talk about everything that went on at Atlanta, and in terms of Bowman, oh wow, that would be something. And we'll talk about Atlanta. We'll talk about preview Nashville for IndyCar, Baku for Formula One, and everything else that's going on, and also week 1 of the NFL. Give you a recap on all that here on the GSP. So for Josh, I'm Phil. Thanks as always for listening, and we'll see you next time.